Hello, class. We are now on Chapter 4, Health and Wellness. Let me get us back up here. While I'm doing this, let me take a few minutes to talk about those who are choosing to do Section 1 for assessment, which is the articles and the paper. We're now on Chapter 4. This is the first week. We've already covered a lot of areas in which poverty can have an impact, such as development of brain, development of growth. We're going to talk about it in this chapter. Please choose one area that we have discussed or will be discussing for next week. That's what your paper will focus on. So some examples of papers might be nutrition and poverty versus brain development, or learning and the impact on poverty, or let's see, language development and the impact with poverty. Something like that, some topic we've covered related to poverty. So when you go to search for your articles, those are the keywords you're going to use. It should include your main topic, which is the area of development you want to talk about, and the word poverty. Okay? Please be sure your articles come from a reliable source. They should not just come off of the internet. My clue is usually to people, if the article is less than 3 pages long and does not have a long list of people as references, then that's not the right article for you. Now, if you have access to the Roberts database, you'll find tons of information on there. If you are a high school student and you do not have access to Roberts database, do the best you can. Just, if you're not sure, send me the article and I'll look it over for you. If you do the write-up and it's an iffy article, I may make sure you do it right the next time. All right? Again, I'm going to try to give a lot of grace. Okay. And since it's day 4, if you choose Section 3 and you're going to have exams, that will be posted Friday. You will have the entire weekend to complete it, and it is open book. It's due on Monday. Okay, Chapter 4, Health and Wellness. So the first thing we have to talk about is stress and coping. So it seems like a good time to talk about that as we're all in it at the moment. Stress is a response to events that threaten or challenge an individual. So that is college shutting down before your class is over, learning how to go online when you've never done that before, being disconnected from family and friends, not being able to go do the things you enjoy doing. That's all stress. And if you are not feeling stressed right now, please tell me how you're doing it, because this is a very stressful time. So it's also important to know that even pleasant events can cause stress. Getting married, buying a new home, heading off to college, going on vacation, those would all be considered positives, but the things that you need to do to prepare for and look forward to those things can cause stress. Long-term continuous exposure to stress can result in changes in your body. There is so much research out there right now saying that people who have lived through stressful events, it alters their brain development. They're beginning to look at that as a reason for ADHD. Did undue stress cause those changes in brain development that in the frontal lobe, causing problems with learning and organization and all that kind of stuff? Stress can hurt you. So the origins of stress. Stress is related to negative emotions for the most part. Even if you're planning something pleasant like a wedding, there's still a negative emotion of the organization pulling it together, people not agreeing on things, trying to find the perfect whatever music caterer. There's still negative emotions tied to it. Stress feels like an uncontrollable or unpredictable situation. It's ambiguous, and it can be an ambiguous or confusing situation. So this coronavirus would be uncontrollable, unpredictable. Confusing situation is switching how we do school to go online. Stress can also come from a simultaneous task demand. If you're a parent, you ought to know this one. Both kids asking for something at the same time while you're trying to get dinner together and clean the house because company's coming over. It's multitasking at its worst. That's stress. Now we're going to talk about, so stress is bad. Sleep deprivation is bad also. And it seems to occur most in adolescence. Adolescents tend to go to bed later and get up earlier. In my household, they didn't get up earlier unless they had to go to school. But that's how it is right now, right? Teens stay up late and then they have to be at school by 7 in the morning. Sleep deprivation, what that means is that your brain doesn't get the chance to rest, to reorganize, to myelinate, to create those pathways. It's tired. So the result of that, of the brain not getting the rest it needs, is that you're going to have lower grades, possibly depression, a harder time controlling mood, and a greater risk for auto accidents. Sleep deprivation is a huge risk factor for car accidents. So I know it's easy to say, please make sure you get a lot of sleep. As an adolescent, even as an adult, it's pretty darn important. Sometimes those things are not in our power, but to the best of your ability, make sure you're getting the right amount of sleep for you. So there's a lot of consequences for stress. So sleep deprivation fit in there because that creates stress. The direct physiological effects are elevated blood pressure, decrease in immune system functioning, increased hormonal activity, and psychophysiological conditions. What this all means is that it impacts your body. You're going to get sick more. You're going to have hormonal issues. You're going to have psychophysiological conditions. What that means is when you're stressed out, your body's going to react in weird ways. Maybe all of a sudden your knee hurts. The doctor can't find any reason for it. It could be because you're stressed out. Also causes people to do things like increase nicotine and alcohol, decrease nutrition, decrease sleep because your brain is going, increase drug use. These seem like a quick fix to stress, but we're going to talk about these in a little while, and they're not. They're going to cause much more stress later on. Indirect health-related behaviors decrease compliance with medical advice. If you're feeling depressed, you may not follow your doctor's advice. Increase in delays in seeking medical care, decrease in likelihood of seeking medical advice, less likely to exercise. When someone is stressed out, it's really important to go find out why you're stressed if you don't know. Go find some help, somebody good to talk to decrease your stress levels and find some healthy, good for you ways to deal with your stress. The use of nicotine and alcohol, not eating while eating junk food, not sleeping, all of that will make you feel good very short term, but will create major long terms. So coping with stress. Problem-focused coping is an attempt to manage a stressful situation by directly changing the situation to be less stressful. So a problem-focused solution, I'm trying to think of an example here. So if you're at a four-way stop and the car in front of you is not moving, a problem-focused situation might be to go back and turn a different way, wait patiently, or safely go around the car. You're solving the problem. Emotion-focused coping involves a conscious regulation of emotion. In that same situation, emotion-focused coping, your first thought might be to get angry and blare the horn, maybe say some bad words, whatever. You're trying to get the person to move. So emotion-focused coping is realizing that that's not going to help. The stress is going to cause you more problems. And taking control of that, taking a deep breath, and not emoting, not having a reaction to it. Social support coping is having the people around you help you with that. So maybe that is trying to think, calling your friend and saying, this guy's not moving his car, I'm not quite sure what to do, what do you think I should do? That's using social support coping. Defense coping involves unconscious strategies that distort or deny the true nature of the situation. So for this one, let's see. You might, I'm not sure about this one. You might change the story in your head to be defensive. So maybe you went around the guy and a cop stopped you and you blamed the guy. Maybe you went around the guy unsafely and the cop stopped you and then you blamed the guy. That would be defense coping. You dealt with the situation, but then you didn't take responsibility for how it came out. So which one do you think is the best for this? I would say all but the last one. So here's some general guidelines for dealing with stress. And again, sometimes things are not in our control and we have to find different ways to deal with them. This coronavirus, changing to online formats, all of that is not in our control. So the first one says, seek control over the situation producing the stress. Sometimes we cannot have control, but we can control what goes on in our environment. Redefine the threat as a challenge. It's no surprise that I've not taught online before, so teaching an online class instead of being a threat hanging over my head became a challenge. And boy, has it been a challenge. Find social support. There's all kinds of ways to stay socially connected right now during this stressful time. Making sure that you have those people in your life, and if not, just start to find those people in your life who can support you and just listen. Sometimes that's the best thing. Use relaxation techniques. I think the book gives a couple relaxation techniques. That's an easy Google relaxation techniques and you'll have more than you need to know. Usually in live class we do a few, but it's a little harder to do here. Try to maintain a healthy lifestyle. Again, that's getting plenty of sleep, eating right, getting some exercise. And remember, a life without any stress at all would be a dull one. And I did not write that. That's from the book. Okay. Hardiness, resilience, and coping. Hardiness is a personality characteristic associated with lower rates of stress-related illness. This is a person who can handle a whole lot in life, and it doesn't seem to impact them. We probably know somebody like that. Maybe it's a parent or a grandparent or best friend. They just seem to be able to handle whatever life throws at them. Resilience, on the other hand, is the ability to withstand, overcome, and thrive following profound adversity. Resilience is what I call the children who've lived in poverty and not had the good nutrition, the appropriate sleep, all of the experiences in life that the average kid has, and they still come out as the top of a class, or they still graduate, they still go on to college. That's resilience. Not only did they learn life lessons, but they had to learn it the hard way. That's resilience. Okay, so we're going to start on malnutrition, talk about nutrition a little bit, and then I'm going to stop and do a second video for you. So malnutrition is not having the appropriate amount of nutrients. It can impact bodies in different ways depending on what the nutrients is that they're not getting. In some cases, malnutrition, excuse me, children can have food, but they don't have the right amount of food, or they don't have the right kind of food. Sometimes malnutrition happens because there is a physical issue with the body, absorption of vitamins and minerals, and that creates malnutrition. One should never assume that a very skinny child is not being fed. My oldest was about as big as a toothpick for his entire life, and he ate like a horse. And he ate the right foods. He just never seemed to gain weight. He always looked malnourished, but I don't know why, but he just always did. It is more common in children living in developing countries that are malnourished. It does create a slower growth rate, obviously, because we need those vitamins and minerals to strengthen our bones and our bodies. And research shows that during infancy, if a child is malnourished chronically on a regular basis, they will have a lower IQ score later. Now this I want you to really look at. This is the percentage of children living in low income and poor families. So low income means they're living paycheck to paycheck, barely have any money. Poor families would be those who are on assistance right now. So I want you to look at this, because to me, this is a huge issue. If you're going into education as a teacher, if you're going into any field where you're dealing with children, this is important, because these are the kids who will be in your environment. So for white children, 31% of poor or low income families live in poverty. Poor families, 13. So is that 44% of white children are living in poverty? These numbers aren't adding up. Anyway, it's percentages. Anyway, but look at the number of black children, or American Indian children, or Hispanic children. Look at those numbers. That is heartbreaking. That means any child who is not white or Asian, you can pretty much guess is living in poverty. When malnutrition is severe, malnutrition during the first year, the infant will stop growing, attributed to severe deficiencies in proteins and calories. It causes the body to waste away and result in death. I used to have photos of these two things. I took it down. It was pretty disturbing. I can't kwashiorkor. This is found in older children. This is where their stomach, limbs, and face swell up. The body is not able to use what little nutrient is available. This is the picture of the children on when you're watching TV and they're saying feed the children. That's this right here. They have large tummies and very teeny legs and arms and huge heads because they're starving. On the opposite spectrum is obesity. There is a clear link between obesity in infancy and obesity in, it hasn't been developed. Sorry. There is no link between obesity in infancy and obesity later on. They haven't been able to tie those together. As an infant, whether the child is overweight or not, pediatricians are focusing more on nutrition, not calories, not anything like that. They want to make sure that the child is receiving the correct nutrition. Nutritional problems in adolescence, I'm going to guess we all have felt these. High consumption of junk food, sugars, and fats, larger portion sizes, lack of variety, related health issues to that, obesity, osteoporosis, diabetes, heart disease. The decisions made in adolescence for what we eat will impact us later on. Again, remembering the brain development of a child in adolescence, it's not quite in that area yet. So making good choices for food during an adolescent that's hard. Our brains are not really wired to do that. Again, most young adults know which foods are healthy, but they choose not to. I think later on we talk about emotionally during adolescence, we feel that we're invincible and that it's okay to do these things because we've got all this time to fix it. And they're saying not so much. Physical growth begins to decline, which means we're supposed to decrease our calories. Anytime our growth stops or anytime our activity stops, our calorie intake should reduce. As an adolescent and a young adult, that does not always happen. I think the biggest one I see is young adults getting jobs where they were very active and they played a sport. Now they're behind a desk and they eat the same foods and have the same calorie intake, and weight gain happens. So this is obesity in children over the years, starting from 1976. The largest growth is between 12 and 19. As an off note, having done a lot of research on nutrition lately, it's processed foods, high fructose corn syrup, the addition of our genetically modified foods and our processed foods, that ties beautifully with these growths. Just an FYI. So I thought this was kind of funny. Not really. Over all of these countries, United States has the most obesity, weight in pounds. I'm not thinking this is something we should be proud of, but again, it really ties back to the way our food has changed, the way that we've redone our food in relation to like Asia. Asia does not do things we do with our food. It's banned. We didn't ban it, and I think this is the result of it. All right, I'm going to stop here, and I will see you guys on the next video.